Music is all I've ever wanted to do since I was like 12 or 13 years old. I wasn't like other kids in school. I'd always be home rehearsing or recording in the studio I'd built in my parents' basement with my dad's help. I would even sometimes not go on family vacations. My parents would plan a trip and I'd say, hey, I need to stay home and rehearse and record. Of course, sometimes I'd have little parties and, what the heck, I was a teenager. I skipped college and started touring with bands, and I did that for a few years. And then later on, I built a studio, and I started doing a lot of studio work as well. I mean, this is all I've ever wanted to do, and this is, for the most part, all I've ever done. And I've pretty much just hung out with people just like me, musicians, producers, artists, actors, stuff like that. That is until I got married and had kids. My wife had made some friends with some people that also had kids, not music people, just, good, regular people. And they never really saw me because I'm always working and doing my thing. But I figured at some point I should go and hang out and try to be sociable. So I went. I'd never really hung out with civilians before, so I wasn't sure what to expect. But I figured, I'll go in and do what I normally do, which is, what do we do in our business? We talk about what we do. And we ask people about what they're working on. So I did that. Didn't go over so well. People felt really uncomfortable. I could tell it was some sort of faux pas. You're not really supposed to talk about work in these situations, so I dropped it. But the other thing that happened was people would hear me talking about stuff and they would say, you need to find some balance. Hey, and it's not the first time I've heard that before. I don't quite know what it means, but they said it to me and I was like, I need to find balance. I don't know what that means. So shortly after all that, I had a phone call with a good friend of mine, Michael Allenby, who's an artist manager, and I told him about all of that, and he said, Billy, do you know why people tell you need to find balance in your life? And I was like, no, why? And he said, because people that tell you need to find balance in your life are people who hate what they do for a living. They hate their jobs. They're helping somebody else achieve their dreams and get wealthy, but they're not doing what they want. So therefore, when they're not working, they need to fill their time with stuff that's just fun, anything to distract themselves from the fact that they are selling days of their lives in exchange for benefits and security. He said, Billy, you don't need to find balance. You've already found it. You are balanced because you're doing what you love. Now, having said all that, we must all admit that we've all probably known some pretty unbalanced people in the music business. I mean, after all, it's the music business. But that's a different kind of balance that I want to talk about. I'd spent about 10 years doing mostly rap, urban, and pop music, and those are genres where people do just about anything to have success. And I don't mean just morally speaking, which I've seen some weird things, but I mean just pushing themselves so hard and sacrificing things beyond reason to the point where I think they're hurting themselves. That was the world I lived in, and I accepted it, and I just figured that's the way we were supposed to do things. So, that's how it was. But years later, I found myself in the lucky position of being able to work with one of the world's greatest groups, the infamous String Dusters. And go check them out if you ever get a chance. I was working with them at Echo Mountain in North Carolina. First time I'd ever worked with them. I was just getting to know them. And the third night in, we finished up a little early. And one of the guys in the band said, let's go back to the band house and let's party and jam. And somebody else in the band said, no, we should go back and go to sleep. And I remember thinking, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but thought maybe he was kind of kidding. So they all left. They went back to the band house. I had my motorcycle with me, so I drove around a little bit. And I got back to the band house about 20 minutes after them. And when I got there, everybody was in bed. And I was just like, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, it wasn't even that late. It wasn't even midnight yet, but all right. So anyway, next morning, I got up. I was walking into the studio, and I called their manager, Michael Allenby, who was their manager at the time. And I told him about that. And he said, oh, yeah, the band thinks getting a lot of sleep's really important. It's very important for them to be fresh and healthy. And I'd also noticed that the band spent a lot of time deciding where they're going to eat. And he said, this band realizes that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Here's how it normally works. Most bands, they get out on the road thinking that they're going to just go out and tour and be like party animals and just go, go, go. And they're going 100 miles an hour because after some time they're going to get discovered and some undefined thing is going to happen. They'll become successful and then they'll be lifted up and carried along like some sort of Cinderella story or something like that. I guess that happens. I've never seen it. But what ends up happening is they just end up kind of wearing themselves out. They're not eating well because it's hard to eat well on the road. They're not getting enough sleep. They're wearing themselves out also financially. They're just going like all hell bent, just like driving towards a cliff, you know? And they're also not taking care of their personal relationships. And after about 4 or 5 years, the whole damn thing falls apart. What the Dusters realized is that they wanted to do it the rest of their lives. That even if you have a huge record, even if you make $1 million and have a hit song, at the end of the day, it's still the same job. You might be in a better bus. You might have a better hotel room. You might even have a roadie that carries some of your gear. But for the most part, guys, it's the same damn hours. It's like you're still walking somewhere and getting on a stage and playing, and you're away from home a lot, and you're going to have to do it the rest of your life. So you'd better, like, be ready. You better take care of yourself. You better, find some balance, okay? And the kind of balance I'm talking about here is make sure you're eating well and staying healthy. And this is not just for touring musicians. I'm talking about working in the studio. Eat well. Take care of yourself because you're going to wear yourself out. Don't go too long without a good night's sleep. We all have to get on these marathons where we're working and we're touring and all that. I get it, but catch up on that sleep once in a while. Make sure to pay attention to your psychological health. Don't abuse that. Make sure your wife or husband are happy. Find that one thing that you really love that's not musical and try to do it once in a while. And at all other times, I just say, keep pressing on with what you're doing. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you're working too hard because you're not working. You're living the dream. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, or ask me some questions, and come back for more.